We are live, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in our beautiful world. Welcome to Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite, our conversations that count. Today we have a wonderful panel discussion on self-sabotage to self-love. I'm really excited to be here facilitating. My name's Sophia from Sacred You, standing in for our beautiful Bex, who unfortunately is not feeling well today. However, we've got some amazing panelists on. I'm just turning off my phone because it keeps beeping. We've got some amazing panelists today. So let us introduce our incredible panelists who are going to be joining us for self-sabotage to self-love. So with us today, we have the beautiful Jacqueline. Jacqueline, thank you for joining us. And I'm just bringing up everyone's bios. Too many screens on here. So Jacqueline, you're an energy healer. Now I remember because I had the honor of chatting to you a little while ago. So Jacqueline is an energy healer and a guide who has been in recovery for over 4 years. Jacqueline has learned how to turn, Jacqueline learned why to turn to alcohol when she couldn't deal with all the problems. So all that thing about sabotaging ourselves with any addictions. So Jacqueline discovered who she was after struggling for so many years with addictions through energy healing. And she learned that she wasn't a victim, but a survivor, which is really great to know. So thank you very much for joining us today, Jacqueline. It is a real honor. And our beautiful Celia, who's joining us all the way from the garden party in the UK. Thank you, Celia, for joining us. So, Cecilia, you are a creative visionary and now a personal cosmic soul guide. I'd like to know more about that on another conversation. Cecilia creates a safe space for women seeking inner joy and connection to their own wisdom. And you can find your passion for living in a creative flow with the universe and recalibrate your life so that it becomes vibrant and magical, full of self-discovery and purpose. I love that, Celia. And you are the absolute example of finding your creative flow. Love it. So again, Celia, thank you for joining us tonight for self-sabotage to self-love. And with us again is Jen. Jen is our beautiful host of the Conscious Law of Attraction Tribe in our sacred community. And Jen has spent most of her life afraid, living in the shadows, hiding and existing instead of living. Jen was constantly at war with ourselves, definitely self-sabotaging, which created lots of mental chaos and exhaustion. These things put Jen on a journey of self-discovery and healing through therapy, energy work, belief clearing, self-improvement, books, courses, and schooling. But through all of that, you still felt that there was something fundamentally wrong. But it's not until she found the work that she's finally doing now that she got the idea that she's not broken, but is able to heal, and we'll know more about that soon. Jen is a LMT and certified magnetic mind coach and is well versed in using many different modalities, including Reiki, theta healing, subconscious belief clearing, chakra balance, tarot intuition, and for me, Jen, if I can add to it, definitely the most important, the modality of self-love. So thank you for joining us for that, Jen. So let's get into our wonderful conversation, if I can hear, self-love, because many of us struggle with self-sabotaging behaviors, such as negative self-talk, self-doubt, self-destructive habits that hinder all our personal growth and happiness. However, by learning to practice self-love and compassion, we can break free from these patterns and cultivate a positive and fulfilling life. So today we have a wonderful discussion. So let me ask the question, what are some common ways in which people self-sabotage And how can we recognize these patterns in ourselves? So, Jacqueline, would you like to start? How do you think?
The first thing is procrastination. I mean, that affects, I think, every aspect of self-sabotage in itself. I mean, it's deep-rooted belief that we don't love ourselves. And somebody like me that struggled with addiction for so many years, that was my common thing. I never completed anything. I kind of started something and kind of made the excuse that I was bored, I was too busy, I was too this, I was too that, to never follow through because I never believed that I could in the first place. Low self-worth, low self-esteem, all these things cause people to want to procrastinate, pick up the bottle in my case, or take a drug or eat food, or any of those things are very, very self-sabotaging in itself. And, and it's a repetitive cycle. So you eat the food, you gain the weight, you get depressed, you get sad, you get more downhill. So you start to feel overwhelmed by yourself. It's all the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves that cause us to feel that way. So for me, procrastination, and even once in a while, I catch myself doing that myself.
Yes.
And I have to be very self-aware and say, hey, I got to stop doing this and try to break the pattern. Self-awareness is key in order to overcome this. Being self-aware, being very mindful, to understand your patterns, behaviors, and just talking to yourself and reassuring yourself things are going to be okay. If you didn't follow through one day, rather than do the judgmental, beat yourself up kind of scenario that you tend to do, people in general, when they don't follow through, you just kind of repeat yourself, it'll be okay. Tomorrow's another day. And then follow through the following day. So it's kind of like people with addictions. And I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure it falls in other with other individuals that are struggling in general with other factors. You kind of works baby steps. So you kind of have to talk yourself every day until you get to that point where you're saying, okay, now I feel empowered. So it's kind of like you have to have compassion for yourself and love yourself and understand where you're coming from without judging, being very objective. But that requires a lot of self-work, which is something that most people have a hard time doing. Yes. So you have to get in to actually see what is going on inside you to kind of release it. And that's where energy healing comes into place, or any other modality that helps. Journaling. I mean, there's so many things you could do to help release a lot of that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. And I can actually see, how for some people that, just as all the dogs start barking, for some people, it's much more comfortable to continue on sabotaging ourselves rather than doing the work. So thank you for sharing that. And Celia, what about yourself? What are some of the ways that people sabotage, and other ways, and how can we recognize those?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, all of those words of wisdom from Jacqueline, but I want to just expand that procrastination, because if somebody says, oh, are you procrastinating, you'd go, oh yes, and I would recognize that behavior. But I think what happens is, our inner critic, our voice of fear, has many hats and likes to sort of disguise themselves in other ways, because as soon as you know that you recognize what procrastination looks like for you, then it'll pop up somewhere else. It's, it's like a perennial weed that you think you've dealt with it, and then it pops up and masquerades as something else. So for me, I suddenly notice what's going on around me, and you go, oh, there's a lot of unfinished things here. I start something and then I'll get distracted. So distraction is just a form of procrastination. But that's lovely, isn't it? You see, oh, that's a really good idea. Oh, I think I'll go and do that. And we may not recognize it as the destructive behavior of whether it's alcohol or food, and food is my big one. So, wouldn't it be nice to go out for coffee and have a nice cake with that? Because surely that's self-care and that's a very loving thing to do. Well, there are times when you go, yeah, let's celebrate, but actually, why am I doing, why am I doing the thing? Am I actually saying, oh, I think I'm just going to go for coffee because I'm avoiding doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? So procrastination is it's a huge topic in itself, because it shows up in different ways. And as soon as you begin to recognize a behavior as, oh, actually, that's not very loving to myself. Would I say that to any of my closest friends? What are you saying to yourself? That's what I talk about, is, what words are we using, the frequency of those words. And is that coming from a place of love, or actually, is it something that is preventing me from bringing my work to the world? It's that stay small, be quiet, don't make a fuss, who's going to listen to you, those sort of negative talk. So it's recognizing the negative talk. It's recognizing how procrastination is showing up for you. So that for me is that drilling down a little bit, let's get to the root of the problem, using that garden analogy again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love what you're saying, and that's another question which we can go on to, the difference between self-love and sabotaging. I love the example that you're doing. Yes, we do. Self-love to me is about, going out and taking time out and having a coffee or having the cake because we deserve it. But then also on the other side of it, balancing that, or knowing when we're actually avoiding, when we're actually procrastinating and sabotaging ourselves for what we're doing. Love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's a lot of wonderful insights. So this is great. So thank you. And Jen, what about you? Can we continue this and go into what are some underlying reasons for self-sabotaging behaviors? And how can we address those root causes?
So what I've understood about self-sabotage is that we all have this belief, we're programmed into this belief, I shouldn't say we all have, but we're programmed into this belief that the future is going to be better when, right? And the advertising industry loves this paradigm, because it's like, if you buy this product, do this thing, your life is going to be great. And so we believe that the future is going to be better when. Now, the problem is when we have this belief, it gives us the identity that now is not good enough and that we need to fix ourselves to have what we want. So we start to move towards this thing that we say we want, right? But the identity of the person who has that thing is not the same as your identity that needs to fix yourself to have this thing, right? So you move towards what you want and your identity starts freaking out and saying, wait a minute, I'm not a person who has things. I'm a person who needs to fix myself to have things. Or, I don't know, I've never had it before. Is it safe to have this thing? I don't know what it really would be like. And so our identity starts to literally freak out. And then we sabotage ourselves. And then it reaffirms that we're broken and we need to fix ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the real reason I believe that we self-sabotage, because we don't believe that we don't believe that we can actually have it. We don't believe that we're good enough now. And when you come from that belief, from that place, you're going to sabotage because the identity is just not the same. And so in order to really notice when you're self-sabotaging and move past the self-sabotaging, you have to look at what you want to create, what your dreams are. A lot of us decide that we want to go for something, but we really want to go for something else. We say we want this thing, but it's not, we don't actually want this thing. We want this thing because of what it's going to give us. So it's getting really clear on what do we want? What's our dream? What's our goal? What's our desire? Where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? What do we want to have? But coming from a place of really going, that would be cool just because it would be cool, because I would love to have it. Not for any other reason other than that. And it's really like getting really clear on what you want, getting really clear and self-aware of what you want. Because a lot of us say we want this thing because we're supposed to want this thing. We want this thing, whatever, Mm-hmm. And then once you can do that, then you can start moving towards it. And as these self-sabotaging things come up, you can look at it as a growing. Oh, I'm moving towards this thing. That's good. My identity's freaking out. That means there's movement. Okay, it's not personal. It just means I'm coming up with against stuff. And so now you can look at this stuff and say, well, why is this coming up right now? How can this help me grow? How can this help me move? How can this help me continue? And you can really look into it, work through it. And as you're working through it, then you can continue taking the action towards what you want. You don't have to let the self-sabotaging things stop you. They can come up, right? And you can look at them and you can say, I really want to do this thing. I really want to avoid. I really want to overeat. I want to go into my addictions. I want to worry. I want to do these things. Okay, it's not personal. Just means that I'm moving into an uncomfortable situation. I'm growing. I'm shifting. Yes. Yay. You know, yes. This is good. Now, what's true? You know, what's true? Is this thing that I'm feeling, is this fear that I'm feeling true? And can I take the action anyway and continue on towards this end result?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I was just having a thought, like, isn't it wonderful? And where we can get to a stage and slowly, you know, spread it throughout the whole world, where we know that when we go through uncomfortable things, to actually celebrate it, because we're growing, you know. So thank you for sharing that, and to realize that, you know, it is all about growing and to really focus on what we want, on to know what we want and to focus on that. So thank you for sharing that, Jen. And can I ask you, Jen, can we go back around? What are some practical strategies that we can use for developing self-love and self-compassion, especially when dealing with negative self-talk? What are some of the practical things that you put into your life when all those self-sabotaging beliefs, thoughts come up?
Practical things, meditation has been huge for me. Meditation, really, not the meditation where you're sitting trying to quiet your mind, though. The meditation of actually stepping into the end result of what I want, and then looking at what's in the way and actively asking myself, you know, why don't I have that thing? What beliefs do I have? What's holding me back? And just the understanding that, again, these things are not me. The understanding a lot of these self-sabotaging patterns, habits, beliefs, they're learned. Okay, a lot of them are passed down to us from up to 7 generations back. They're family crap, right? So it's not even our stuff that we carry and we go on. So understanding that these things are not me, understanding that the sabotaging patterns are part of the creative process. They're going to come up. Even the most successful people out there, when they're leveling up or they're shifting into something different, they're coming up against all their shit too. It just is, right? Because it's growth. And so it's getting to that place. And lately I've just been really trying to allow in my meditations, you know, allow that. Why do I feel like I have to be a certain way? Why do I feel like, you know, things have to look a certain way? And why is it not okay for things to look the way that they are? And really just getting to the place and keep going where it's okay. Stop fighting what is. You know, I need to just release and surrender to what is, even if it doesn't look right, even if it's not what I want. To surrender and stop the fight and let go of some of the heaviness that I've been carrying around. And so, you know, journaling is great. Like I said, meditation, energy healing, you know, just talking to a friend and really processing and choosing our end results, you know, choosing that, you know, I want to be the predominant creative force in my life. I want to consciously create my life. And is this consciously creating? You know, am I creating on autopilot, or am I creating by consciously asking myself, you know? So a lot of education, you know, just a lot of understanding in the mind, but also just, you know, physically doing things. So I hope that made sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Celia? What are some practical strategies that you use or share with others for developing, you know, self-love and compassion when overcoming all those negative self-beliefs?
Yeah, sure. I want to pick up on this growth being uncomfortable. Because it is. Because when we're growing, I mean, I you know, and that authentic piece, that there's just been speaking about how, when we're panelists, we're here, have we got it all together? Well, no, because we're growing too. And I will share that I have, we're coming now out of the UK winter into spring. And this winter for me has been one of growing, of transformation, of really peeling back another layer. And it has felt like shedding a skin. I've been working with snake medicine, and that really uncomfortable place, and that desire to go, well, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be better if you were in a nice, safe space? For me, that looks, I've stepped out. I've left my full-time job. I'm creating my authentic, rebellious, quirky lifestyle. And what's come up is, well, wouldn't it be nice if you just had a job and somebody, and you go, oh no, I don't want to go back there, even though it is incredibly uncomfortable in this growth process. So what have I turned to in my winter? And it's allowing. I love that word, allow. Allowing the space. I talk in Garden Party about stop and smell the roses.
Yes.
Just pause. And sometimes, we're very driven. It's what do I need to do? These practical strategies immediately make us think of, I got to do something. Well, how about actually you just sit and stop and smell the roses and just pause, and allow all of the lessons to integrate. And we are human beings, not human doings, but we've been trained, we've been brought up, and I love that we've, that generational healing that I think we are being called to in this time, in this place. We've chosen to be in this incredible period of human history to do this work of changing the story. I work a lot with thinking about this polarity, whether it is around wealth, whether it is around health. Especially I can talk from experience on the health, the weight issue. Let's talk food. I love talking food, because you go, oh well, it's too much this, and then we go back to that. And then that applies whether it's an addiction, and we just swing like a pendulum from one to the other. Whereas actually what we get the opportunity to do is to say, well, no, let's get off the roundabout. I don't want to keep doing that. And I am going to change my story so radically that I'm not doing this swinging backwards and forwards. I'll come back to my garden. I've recently realized that what I was trying to grow in my garden was not native to this country, and I have struggled. I plant one and I look after it, and then it doesn't survive the winter because it's not supposed to be in my garden. And sometimes we just need to go, you know what, let's just leave that behind. Let's say, what is my purpose? What am I here to cause and create? What wants to grow in my garden that is going to flourish because it's from my heart space? That's so practical creativity. Make something. So make something just because you can. Go make a cake. Go make some soup. Because actually sometimes that is nourishing and nurturing. And just I love that, being in the present moment rather than going, well, what about this? And something needs to pull us forward. And when we are in that growth place, actually, you think of those little tender shoots in the garden, they just need little nurturing, and maybe they need some support. So, is it a case, certainly for me, who's been very used to being, lone wolf, I'm very capable, I'm very independent. but reaching out for support is sometimes, you know, what am I finding difficult? Because that's probably what I need. So I hope that sort of vaguely answers the question about, you know, what do we do? And I think, you know, for me, it's, well, maybe I get to be in that place.
And I love that, and it definitely does answer the question, because, you know, as you said, we've become human doings instead of beings. And I think also by being busy, by having this whole doing, I don't have time to do anything because I'm so busy, is another form of sabotaging, because we're not taking the time just to be. So I love it, just to be and smell the roses. And I think we all need to go, everyone who's listening, we all need to go to Cecilia's garden and the garden party. So thank you for sharing that, Celia. And what about you, Jacqueline? What are some practical strategies that you've used in your life? Because I know you've shared a little bit with your struggles to get back into a space of developing that self-love and compassion for yourself.
Well, the one thing that's very key is for me is, meditation is very important to incorporate. It's very good, kind of relaxes you, kind of gets you out of your head a little bit. Even using music. Music is wonderful for that as well. You can meditate with calm music, frequency music, or anything that's very calming and relaxing to the soul. I also like to take walks, be in nature, sit on the grass and meditate and listen to the sounds of nature. So I also like to take myself out of my norm to be somewhere different, because that's where creation and positivity grow. Also journaling, exercising, I do yoga. So stretching, anything, movement is very good too, to get your body out of sync of just being in the same state that it's been. So it kind of shifts you around and shifts energy. It's really good. The most important thing that I do to myself, though, when I find myself struggling, having a hard day, wanting to pull my hair out, saying I'm not doing enough, is I talk to myself. So self-talk is key. Talk to yourself and say, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? And then ask, why do you think you're feeling this way? If you're frustrated, and things kind of randomly will pop up, and just allow those things to do that, to pop up, and just inquire and say, well, why am I feeling this way? Because usually it's not in the instance of some feeling. It's usually rooted from something else. You know, that's why, you know, people that have road rage and they're angry, they're not necessarily angry at the driver, they're angry at something else. It's kind of triggered their anger, that brought it back. So they kind of take it out on the person that happens to be in front of them, as opposed to dealing with the things that are unresolved within themselves. It could be a conversation with a partner that they didn't deal with correctly, or it could be anything like that. But me personally, I like to journal as well. I write things down, and I kind of want to remember. Like, I have a little notepad, and I'll say, all right, well, today I felt this way. And then I'll say, well, why did I feel this way? And then I kind of get to the root cause of what it could have been. If I'm not really sure, I rest on it, don't deal with it. And then just go about my day trying to stay positive. And later on in the day, it'll come up again on its own. It's kind of like your mind, your subconscious mind is finally ready to release and say, okay, this is the reason why. Don't put pressure on yourself, because sometimes it's not going to happen immediate. Sometimes it takes a little time. Sometimes you need to sleep on it. Usually, if I have a really hard time, before I go to bed, I'll ask myself these questions. And usually by the time I wake up the next morning, when I'm in the middle of brushing my teeth, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's why. But it's, you know, you got to give yourself a break too, because it could be pressures in life and distractions, work and kids, and, you know, taking care of the household and having businesses and whatnot. Life can get very heavy. So you have to have compassion. And that's one thing that I learned also being a recovered, you know, alcoholic, is having major compassion and just being self-aware. Yes, ask yourself the questions, you know, am I doing this for this reason? But don't get lost in it either, because then you're going to become too judgmental on yourself or nitpick every little thing. You got to just kind of be very self-aware and say, all right, well, it'll be okay. Even though you feel terrible, let's move on. Let's focus on what we need to do for the day. It's like you kind of have to be your own cheerleader too, your own champion, and kind of say, all right, I'm going to do it. And just be with you, because no matter where you go, there you are. You know, you got to learn to love yourself and just love yourself completely the way you are now. but you always want to leave room for improvement. And that's entirely a choice that we all have, whether we choose to go forward or not. And the one thing that I also learned is the only way we grow is to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we grow. And if we don't, we stay stagnant and we don't move, is if we're in our comfort zone. And that's not good if we want to continue to grow and move on.
Yes.
So being very self-aware of all these things is something that I have to incorporate in my life every day and check in on myself randomly every day, because it's important to do that. We neglect ourselves more than anybody else. We care more about the partners of children before we look at ourselves. And that's, if we're not good, then we can't be good for anyone else. So that's kind of my mindset. So I'm just very, very self-aware. Just do little things throughout the day. Listen to music, things that are soothing and comfortable. And believe it or not, all these things will pull the energies out of you. Just take a walk in nature. That they're little things. It's nothing major. It's just very simple things you can do even at home. If you work from home, if you're in the car, even listen to music, relax. But again, we have to be very mindful not to put so much pressure on ourselves to have the answers now. We have to just let it lie and it'll come through.
Yeah.
So that's
Absolutely.
how I deal with it every day. Just mindfulness.
Mindfulness and stuff. And thank you so much for, especially for pointing out, it's the little things. It's the little things in our lives that really, really, really count, and not to put so much pressure on us. So thank you for sharing that, Jacqueline. And can I ask you the next question? Because a lot of us fear success, or we fear failure, and that can lead to very much to sabotaging patterns. That we don't know what's coming. We don't want to fail, but we don't want to be successful. So we're just not going to do anything. So do you have any tips on how we can overcome, fear of failure or fear of success that, leads to all these behaviors that we have that sabotage ourselves?
Well, it goes back to being very self-aware of the reasons why you are actually doing, or lack thereof doing. So if you're afraid, like even myself in the beginning, I'm afraid of going out and talking to people, but I'm like, this is my business. I deal with, people in recovery or alcoholics, and I have to engage with them and this and that. And it could feel a little overwhelming too. Also being an empath, it kind of causes the energies to kind of commingle with each other, and you're like, hey, I gotta stop. I gotta be very self-aware and very careful. But honestly, the only thing that I can really say is being very self-aware, being very practical, even in your thoughts, and saying, okay, well, you know what? I might feel crappy today, and it might be as a result of something that could have been anything. And just feel the feelings and let them go. Don't sit with them. It's very important. So when you feel like you're in a bad place, don't sit there and beat yourself up the whole day wondering why. Creating is more negativity and more energy that's going to keep bringing you down. So just letting go and say, all right, if I'm upset and I'm worried or whatever the case is, I'm not doing enough, it'll come. It'll be okay. Even pat yourself in the back. I've had to do that myself. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I love you. It's going to be okay. And I do say that to myself, because sometimes the stress of things, you don't hear enough from people that are around you, or you don't really share too much, so they don't know what you're going through, because we tend to be also very private. We kind of like to suffer in our own little world. And what happens is we project out, unfortunately, if we don't deal with our little world, and rightfully so. But compassion is very important. Being very mindful is very important. Loving yourself and just being really positive with yourself, and just allowing things to just, again, flow naturally. So you have the answers, journal down things, start to write things down. Why am I feeling this way? And get back to it later. I mean, these are little practical things that you can do to kind of get yourself out of it. Meditate if you need to, or turn on the radio and listen to music and dance like a crazy person in the living room to get you out of that funky feeling, because I have to do that too. I avoid mirrors when I do that, because I don't want to see myself going crazy. But it's good because you get the energy out. It's like, or even laugh. I fake laugh when I feel very I want to, I'm uncomfortable. I just laugh and laugh until it becomes a natural state, because then I laugh at myself laughing at myself. So it's these things that you can do to kind of get yourself out of that funk. Say, okay, now I'm ready to deal with the energy of the day, and it's going to be okay, and I'm going to take care of it. And that's literally like how I do it every day. Self-talk, it's very important. And then just the other things, you know, a little meditation, a little music, just relaxing, journaling. And those are the things you can do, you know, to kind of pull yourself out of the state.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I love it, especially about the dancing and things and stuff, because it's so true. We get stuck in the energy.
Yes.
And that is also sabotaging ourselves. So whatever it takes to get that to get that energy moving. So thank you for sharing that. And Celia, what about you? What about yourself? Like, what do you do, either for yourself, or if you've, you know, got any clients or anyone that might be experiencing, you know, having a fear of failure, fear of success, and that we don't want to go, you know, we're just comfortable here. So we don't want to get into the uncomfortableness of success, or what we perceive to be failure. What are some tips that you can offer?
Yeah, it's we love being in our comfort zone, don't we?
Yes, we
you
do.
know, because it's really cozy, it's really nice. And you go, yeah, but that's not where the work and where the growth is happening. And so I love that, you know, it is about moving the energy, and how, whatever that looks like for you. You know, all of that, the journaling, the moving, the getting out in nature, being barefoot. I realized, for me, having been through the winter, I need to be barefoot. You know, I mean, I do have some flip-flops on, but I wear, even though my feet feel, you know, oh, my feet feel cold, you go, but it brings me into my body. It brings me into that present moment. So anything that you can do like that. I you know, I'm a great scribbler. You know, and you can move energy with color. You can get a crayon out and you can just move, because actually in that, you know, vigorous coloring, you're actually moving your body as well.
Yes.
But what I wanted to pick up on was this getting to the root of the fear, because ultimately all of the self-sabotage just comes from a voice of fear.
Yes.
And it's recognizing what that voice, you know, where is that voice coming from? It's that fear and insecurity. Now, for a long time in my life, I didn't recognize my trauma. I experienced childhood bereavement when I was 10. And so when I look at it, you know, objectively, I go, oh, well, yeah, of course that was a trauma. Of course that threw me into insecurity. Of course that made me say, well, what's going to happen next? Because I didn't have the control. And so that is those pivotal moments where this is where we pick up the story. This is where we go, oh, so for me, that insecurity piece was, well, I have to stay safe. I have to stay small. I have to be good. That was, was I being punished? I mean, all of these, like, I look at it and I go, where's that come from? But I talk in Garden Party about your deepest wound is your greatest medicine.
Yeah.
That when you can see the trauma, whatever that is for you. And as I say, I didn't recognize childhood bereavement as a trauma, because back in the day it was we just got on with life. I don't think I even recognized my divorce after 23 years as a trauma, and until you go, oh yeah, actually this is, again, it's that insecurity, the fear piece comes in. And as soon as you get to the root of what is going on, of where these stories are that you're telling yourself, then you can start to change the story. Then you can start to change the negative self-talk. Then you can celebrate your wins. I talk about celebrating the little wins, the days when you get out of bed, and get dressed, and then maybe take a little walk down the garden. Because there have been times in my life where that's been it. you know, I had my to-do list said, you know, get up, get out of bed. And you go, but you get to celebrate those little wins just as much as the big wins, because your brain doesn't know the difference. So when you celebrate, and you know, whether it's that dancing or laughing, your brain doesn't know. It goes, oh, okay, we've got something to laugh about. Oh, brilliant. And then that changes. So it's that idea of what was coming to me as well was a pattern interrupt. Do something different. Whatever it is, you know, if you're in that state of feeling stuck in the mud, then actually just do something slightly different. So that for me is how I navigate through these challenging growth times. And as I say, you know, I'm speaking from quite recent experience, as well as times in the past. So, you know, there's always another layer of the onion to be peeled back.
Which is so true, isn't it? We have lots of many layers of that, of the onion. So thank you for sharing that. It's really a lot of valuable insights, and I just love everything that's being shared here. So thank you, Celia. And Jen, what about you? What are some of the things that you do to overcome fear of failure, fear of success? But can we also go deeper and, you know, like, how do we even recognize that we're fearing success, for example?
So I guess I'll start with what I do. So every morning I have my choices, my end results, and I do meditation. I step into them, and I with like all my senses. So I'm basically reprogramming my mind and my body and my unconscious, what it will be like to already have it, so that it's not going to freak out when I actually have it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, then you ask yourself, okay, so what's the next obvious action step from where I'm at right now? Like, what is the next obvious action step? And so then I write that down. And then when I'm not able to take that action step, I know that something's going on. And fear is big for me, right? So it's like, okay, so why can't I take that action step? What's going on? And I go into that and I shift whatever that is, whether it's a belief, whether it's an emotion, whether it's a habit or whatever. And then once you shift it just a little bit, you're able to take the action step and continue moving forward. And now, so, you know, we talk about getting stuck. We talk about not wanting to leave our comfort zone. And I really believe that we take the path of least resistance. We always take the path of least resistance in everything. So when we have, you know, our desires, our dreams, our goals, or maybe we don't even have a desire, dream, or goal, right? Then why are we going to even try? Why are we even going to put ourselves out there? So if we don't even have anything, it's like, well, okay, whatever, this is my life. I'm not even going to bother doing anything. But we have these negative visions, I guess, that I talked about, right? Where it's like, I want this, I think I want this, but it's to get something else or to fix something, or because I think my life will be better or whatever. Unconsciously, our body knows that, like, that's not exciting. It's not like, doesn't feed our soul, so to speak. It's not like lighting us up, this choice. And so when we don't have a choice that really lights us up and something to move for that really lights us up, it's really hard to want to push yourself to be uncomfortable, because it's like, well, why bother, you know? But when we have a true end result that's just like so delicious and so beautiful that like it lights us up and we get excited and we want it, then it's like, okay, so I really want this thing. So what am I going to do it? And you're going to be more motivated to move toward it. Now, fear of success, fear of failure is completely programmed into it.
Yes.
I mean, because there really is no such thing as success. There's no such thing as failure. Failure is kind of like a feedback. It's basically saying, well, that thing didn't work right here. But failure, I think, comes from really when we expect something to go a certain way and it doesn't go that way, then we think we failed. And so, you know, it's difficult because we want to control. We want to control the outcome. We want to control how things happen. I'm very guilty of doing all of that controlling. But if we can let go of control, we could say, I want this thing. I'm going to let go of control of how it's going to happen. I'm going to let go of control of you know, when it's going to happen. I'm going to just allow, I'm going to take the steps I need to take, the next obvious action step. You know, when you think about a GPS on a car, it doesn't tell you like, take this step, take this step, take this step, take this step. It's like, okay, turn right here. turn left here. You just take the next step, and that's all you need to worry about, right? And so if you just take the next step, you can't really fail, because if it doesn't feel right, then you can redirect, like a GPS system. Recalculating, turn around, make a U-turn. There's always ways you can move back towards what you want to create. So there's no failure per se. Success is also arbitrary, because it's like, what is success? Success is different to everybody. Success might be somebody making, 6 figures. Success might be just having a family. Success might be a bunch of different things that we don't even think about, right? And so it's really, when we stop trying to be successful according to someone else's success and someone else's method, and we start to be successful, what does success mean to me, and defining what success means to you, and how you want to live your life, and start living it according to that, then the fear subsides. It does. But sometimes you have to feel it, and you have to do it anyway.
Yes.
You have to feel it, but you also have to think of fear as a child. You have to think of fear as fear is it's easy to say, I don't want to be afraid, and push it away. All emotions are positive emotions, right? Because they all have a positive intent. We created these emotions for some reason to protect us in some way. So fear is there because it's afraid, right? And so we need to tell it that, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing me that this could go wrong. Thank you for, and then we have to look at, is this relevant, or are you afraid of something going to happen like it happened in the past? Because the unconscious mind loves to take the past and put it on the future. Loves to do that because we're safe. The unconscious mind wants to keep us safe, and we want to stay alive a long, long time. So if it worked in the past, it's going to work on the future, according to our unconscious mind. And our unconscious mind runs the show. So, when we look at it, is this actually happening, or is this my unconscious mind saying, hey, this worked in the past, I'm protecting you, but it's not relevant anymore. So then you have to look at it and say, okay, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for being here. You're allowed to be here. You're allowed to show yourself. You're allowed to be felt and seen and heard. Now what's the next obvious action step? Maybe I need to move through this. Maybe I need to do this anyway. Let's bring forth, I'll give you a hug. Let's bring forth, the confident one.
Yeah.
The confident part-time personality. Let's bring forth a different aspect of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, this is not easy stuff. We talked a lot about self-awareness today. Self-awareness, it's really like you have to go deep. You have to be open and courageous, I would say, to when you go into this work, and to let go of self-sabotage, because it's looking at things in your psyche, in your past, in your unconscious, that may be so-called ugly to you at the beginning.
Yeah.
But the more that you look at it, the more you realize that you created them for a reason. And so they're beautiful because you created them. And if you can shift that to, instead of hating these things, instead of hating the fear, instead of hating all these things, it's beautiful because I created it and it served a purpose. It's just not serving a purpose anymore.
Yeah.
And what's going to serve the purpose now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that many wonderful tips, and even, getting to know what fear is, which is different, as you said, for everyone. So thank you for sharing that. Just want to bring in everyone who is watching us. We do have a few people watching us over the different platforms. So thank you for joining us. We will be wrapping up soon, but if anyone has any questions or comments, please put them in the comments and we will get them to our beautiful panelists tonight. So things like that. So please do put them in very soon. So as we only have another 10 minutes or so to go, and I'm just going to stop. I've got wonderful computer. I don't know if you could hear that, but I've got Siri talking to me. Jacqueline, Siri would like to be part of our conversation. Jacqueline, can I just ask you a question, and just going on a little bit about what Jen says, like about the supportive environment and stuff like that. It's really important to have a supportive environment around us, but how can we create that? How can we create a supportive environment and build a strong support system that helps us overcome all the self-sabotaging stuff that we do?
Well, the one thing that's also really important is also probably joining a group of other women like this community that are trying to uplift and help each other out. Because the important thing is you also need other people that understand where you're coming from. You know, someone you can talk to, just intellectually or whatever capacity you'd like to take it. That's really important. Education is also very important. Read up on, you know, learning, like absorbing as much as you can if you need. I mean, self-help books are great. Talking to a therapist is great. You know, and talking to yourself is obviously, who knows you better than you? I mean, I love therapy, but therapy doesn't know you like you know you. And you're the one that, you know, you come home to, you're the one that is always going to be there for you. So it's just self-talk, talk to yourself. I think that's so key, just to be very self-aware of why you're feeling, check in every day with yourself. You know, and then just doing practical things like meditating, like I said earlier, walking, just doing little things to be out of your element as well. Calling a friend, people, surround yourself basically with a circle of people that are going to support you and your mission, what you're trying to do. That's very important. You don't want to be surrounded by people that are negative, that are just going to kind of poo-poo on anything you're trying to do in your life to self-improve, because you know what they say, misery loves company. And if somebody's miserable, they don't want you to be successful and happy. They want you to come and join the party with them.
Yes.
So that's also very important, just to surround yourself with people that are going to uplift you, be supportive. That's always important. And if you don't really have that many circle of people, you know, there's so many communities out there you can join. There's Meetup here in the US. I don't know if they have it in the UK and just join these groups, like-minded people. You know, they go and have coffee together. They have discussions together about whatever topic is at hand for that group. And it's just very important to do that, and being more social, kind of putting the phone down sometimes, even though we live in a world of technology, and just being present fully in the now, looking around and trying to look at what's really, you know, what's really important, because we do forget that too. You know, we get so stuck in the whole rabbit wheel of like, but we have to go to work and groceries and this, and like just the things that we just need to do on a daily basis, and we just need to carve out a little time for ourselves every day and just again check in and say, okay, or even read a book, something you want to enjoy to get yourself in a comfortable, happy state. Anything that you feel will do that. That's natural. Reading a book, listening to music, talking to a friend that you haven't talked to, things like that. Writing, journaling down all your emotions. Just little practical things you could do on a daily basis that don't cost anything, just your time. And that's the part that we don't want to give up sometimes, is our time, even to ourselves. And we just need to be very, very loving and giving to ourselves, because we're number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We are number one, and it really is about self-love. And we've had so many tips and, you know, things talking about the aspect of loving ourselves more and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, Cecilia, do you have any more practical tips that we can use for incorporating self-love and self-care into our daily lives?
Mm-hmm. Is that piece of surrounding yourself with the positive energy. You know, I think if you're here watching,
I think Celia's might have just frozen. Jen's still with us. Jacqueline's still with us. Celia's just frozen.
Have I frozen out?
Yep. No, you're back again.
Back.
You're back.
Oh, no. Actually, what I love is when you freeze out like that, you go, there's something really, really important that needs to be said here. when we disrupt the universe, we disrupt the internet, we go, oh, well, this is really important. So it is, what was I was talking about empaths, and I was talking about the importance of surrounding yourself with
Yeah, Celia's frozen again.
Yeah. Okay. So, how interesting. This is okay. So, I may put a comment in under the video, because this is you go, you can't make this up, can you?
No.
When it's talking about the surrounding yourself with positive energy,
Yes.
and the internet's going, well, I don't like that. So let's talk about another way of just that self-love, self-care, and putting yourself number one, putting yourself first. You know, it's that put your own oxygen mask on first, fill your own cup first. And that really is, you know, and I've got kids, they're all grown up now, but I remember the time when I went, I need to get up before they get up and just manage to have, even if it's 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, just to fill myself up first, because I know the rest of my day is going to be giving to them.
Yes.
Is going to be doing the thing of what, you know, whether that's the school run or the, you know, whatever it is in life. And there'll always be stuff. Because, and it just looks different as you move through your life. But taking that time, I know I also had times when I would go, right, I've got them all to school, I'm going to come home, and now I've got 5 or 10 minutes for me that I can just fill up those reserves, and that self-care piece.
Yes.
And, you know, we weren't taught to do this. We weren't taught to do the self-love. We were taught, well, I certainly, you know, used to think that doing something for myself was selfish. And I think as I've moved through life, I've gone, no, that self-care piece is absolutely critical if I am going to be able to do my work, whatever work looks like, whether that is being a mother, whether that is caring for an elderly relative, you know, whatever stage of your life you're at, putting yourself first then enables you to do the rest. And I will post below my thoughts on empaths, and because the internet doesn't want me to talk about that life.
No, not today, but that's another conversation. Actually,
Maybe it's
do
another
please come back and join us for when we have the conversations about being an empath.
Yeah.
That is coming up. I will tell you all about that. So thank you for sharing that.
It doesn't want to be talked
Yes,
about
it's saying just wait for that one. Just wait for that one. So thank you for sharing that, and it's really, really, really good. Now we are just about to wrap up. We're almost finished. Can you believe it that we've already been going for an hour? So Jen, before we do wrap up, can I ask you one? Well, first of all, do you have anything that you would like to share with our audience? Any programs, anything like that? We are putting everyone's links in the comments, but if you have anything that you'd like to share, please let us know. And I'd like to know, do you have any final thoughts on how people can overcome the self-sabotaging, especially in, you know, when we've got those really big challenges or those setbacks? How can we stop the self-sabotaging and really get back into loving ourselves? So any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the final thought is just understanding that we are not our beliefs, we are not our habits, we are not our patterns, we are not any of that stuff. And so if you can start depersonalizing and separating yourself from your behavior, separating yourself from your past. You are not your past, right? You did some behaviors, but that doesn't change who you are, your worth, your value. So understanding your value doesn't change whether or not you're sabotaging yourself or you're not sabotaging yourself. Your value stays the same. And so it's that. And then I would say thinking of the challenges, if you can flip it to growth opportunities, because the challenge is a way of saying, this is a challenge. Okay, so how I need to level up? I'm going to grow. I need to learn something new. I need to learn a new skill. I need to learn a new habit. I need to learn, maybe I need to stretch. You know, if you're exercising, your muscles need to time to expand and get stronger, right? And so every time you're creating this challenge, your muscles get stronger and stronger and stronger every time you do it. And then the only other thing really quickly I would say is, if you can notice your thoughts and think of your thoughts as kids, as children coming to you, and understanding that the kids are coming to you with a thought, and then asking yourself, okay, I hear you, I see you, you're valid, now is this true? And really start asking yourself, are these thoughts true? And when they're not, you can just say thank you, but you know, you can go now, you know, gently and lovingly say, you know, this is not serving me anymore, this thought is not serving me anymore. And just one more quick thing is, it really helps when, you know, especially when you're trying to create something, what would the person I'm becoming do right now? And really asking yourself, what action would they take? How would they live their life, right? How would they think? And really designing your life based on that, and creating a value system on that. And then you can look at, okay, so this is the value system of the person I'm becoming. I'm gonna start leaning more into these values. In my actions, I'm going to take actions based on these values. And my habits, and my, you know, you can build it up, your behaviors, your environment, your skills, everything based on the person you're becoming and what you know, how they would be. And so that way you're becoming it now, you're being it now. So anyway, I am the tribe leader of Sacred You. And I'm not the tribe leader of Sacred You. I'm tribe leader on Sacred You, Conscious Law of Attraction. We meet every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific. I believe right now it's 2 p.m. Australian time.
Yep.
Because of daylight savings. And we talk about all this stuff. We really get into the nitty gritty of, you know, the unconscious mind and meditation and structure and, you know, all kinds of different things, reprogramming our unconscious mind. So there's that. And then I also do a webinar every Thursday. It's free. And it's an intro webinar where I go into detail. I go into a lot of education about structures and problem orientation structure versus creative structure and how we're programmed into all this stuff. And to really help you understand, it's not us. It's not us. We think it's us. We think we're broken. We think we're flawed. But the success is not personal. It's structural. You can be anything and everything you are and still create anything and everything you want. Because success is not personal. It's structural. And so I really go deep into the different structures, why we get stuck in each one, and how to shift.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I thoroughly recommend for everyone who is interested in, or who is looking to overcome all the issues and to go into, you know, that it's not personal, truly, is we can change the way, you know, the structure of our thoughts and everything else. And thank you for sharing that, Jen. And thank you for telling us all about your tribe to the conscious law of attraction, which we'll go into just a little bit before. So thank you. Celia, what about your beautiful self? Do you have anything that you would like to share with all our listeners and things?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, you know, we've talked a lot about that self-awareness of where we are now, where do we want to be? And for me, it's that, you know, how do I want to feel? It's not necessarily about the things that I want in my life. It's how do I want to feel? And the invitation is come and join Garden Party. The links are there in the comments to hop on over to my website. And you can sign up to sort of be part and parcel of what is going on in Garden Party. There is also an invitation there to be really courageous and reach out for support and book a conversation with me, because it's by talking, as we've shared, you know, I've got so much out of this panel conversation because people have said things and go, oh yes, that's a really useful way of looking at things, and oh, I hadn't thought about that. So we're all learning, but when you have that conversation with somebody, you know, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual, then it really helps you unpack where you are now, that self-awareness piece, and where you'd like to be. And I recognize that can be quite scary. That can be, you go, oh, well, I don't know, is that something I'm ready to do? So I think one of the other links that is going to be in the comments is a little workbook called Start Your Journey. So if you want to start this work, if you say, oh, actually, there's something I am ready to cause and create, but I'm not quite sure, I'm not even sure where to start, then download the free workbook. And then from that, when you've done some of the work, then that might bring some questions for you. And again, you're very welcome to book yourself in for a chat and a cup of tea and garden party.
Thoroughly recommend doing that. Thank you very much, Celia, for telling us and for sharing that, and for everyone who is listening. Thoroughly recommend, if nothing else, have a chat with Celia, have like I said, a cup of tea in the garden party. So thank you for sharing that. And Jacqueline, what about your beautiful self? Do you have anything that you would like to share with all our audience members?
Well, just again, don't give up. Just, you're beautiful. You're loving souls. We're all here to learn lessons. And as we all came back, don't beat yourself up if things don't go the way that you planned. It's going to be okay. There's always a way. And just stay in the moment. And just remember, and again, self-talk is very important to do that, facilitate that. Because it's going to get you out of a lot of dark places when you're very self-aware of what's going on in your mind and your heart and where you really want to go at the end of the day. How do you want to start your day and how do you want to end your day? And if you want to stay in a positive mind frame, then just do these little things to kind of keep you going there. And as far as my website, I offer free lessons here and there for anyone that's interested in getting services with me. I have the energy healing that I do for people that are recovery for addiction, or even just people that just need a little help, that feel stuck. So I'll do like a free session. Anybody wants to book a session with me anytime to discuss any needs that they might need, particularly because I also like to kind of cultivate a certain program for each individual person to kind of know what they're going through, what their personal struggles are, to kind of work with them. I'm also going to be doing little videos here and there that I'm going to start incorporating, just little how-to kind of things to get through the day, because sometimes we have a hard time and we don't know where to start, and just little antidotes here and there that are going to be very helpful. And I also include on my website, I also have a blog of stories that I share about myself, because people can relate to things that happen in life. Although our stories are not the same, the suffering, the pain are all the same feelings. We all feel equally that whenever there's things going on. So I like to share stories and feedback and things about life on my blog pages, so people can kind of look and say, hey, she gets what I'm going through, because we are all going through something.
Yep.
Whether it's addiction or whatever the case, it may be. Life in general is hard in general. You need to learn how to navigate, and that's very important.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And if I can say, you are very inspirational. And I totally agree, about sharing our stories. There's a big difference between living in our stories and sharing our stories as an inspiration. And Jacqueline, I just want to honor you, just to take a moment to really honor you for sharing, your journey of the struggles that you've been through. And now you're helping others. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. And thank you for joining us tonight. Like I said, I've had lots of fun, and Celia, thank you for joining us, and Jen, I hope everyone out there who's watching, whether it's live or on the replay, that you've picked up all these lots of tips that we can do, even if it's just the little things, to really let go of the self-sabotaging habits and to come back into that space of healing and loving ourselves with compassion. So all the little tips that all these beautiful women have taken their time out today to share with us. So thank you. And for everyone who is watching, again, if you're interested, come and join us, because as Jen says, she runs the Conscious Law of Attraction tribe. We've got over 20 tribes. We've got some fabulous new tribes in our sacred community, so much that I can't remember at the moment, but there's lots. There's Empowering You, there's the Magical Playground, there's Becoming Your Own Best Friend, we've got we've got lots. I'm just trying to think of the one that I really want to think of, and it's gone. But anyway, we've got lots and lots of tribes. Do click on the links. You can join us now. Human design. That's the one. Come and learn about your human design just for $1 Australian. Just $1 Australian, and for that you get 3 weeks to try out all our tribes. And after that, it's just 35 Australian. No, 15 Australian dollars a month. I am getting tired. It's getting late here in Australia. 15 Australian dollars, and you get to join all our tribes. That's after the 3 weeks. But do click on the links below. Coming up, we've got lots of panel discussions. The links will be below. In another few days, in 3 days' time, we've got how do busy entrepreneurs relax, rejuvenate, and focus frazzled nerves. Thoroughly looking forward to that one. So again, all our beautiful women, it has been an honor to have you with us tonight, and I really look forward to having part 2. And for Celia, that one on being an empath, let's do that sometime soon. Thank you.